Greetings, family. I am Sister Nyasha. I'm going to be reading Marcus Garvey, Message to the People, The Course of African Philosophy, Lesson 5, God. There is a God and we believe in him. He is not a person nor a physical being. He is a spirit and he is universal intelligence. Never deny there is a God. God, being universal intelligence, created the universe out of the intelligence. It is the intelligence that creates. Man is a part of the creation. So universal intelligence and man was created in the image and likeness of God. Only by his intelligence. It is the intelligence of man that is like God. But man's intelligence is only a unitary particle of God's universal intelligence. God of his universal intelligence made matter, and he made the mind. The matter is made by God, and the man is matter as well as mind. Therefore, man must be the image of God, because nothing could exist without God. As God made the universe out of his universal knowledge, intelligence, so man is his unitary knowledge or intelligence can make a typewriter, an automobile, or a chair, but he cannot make the universe because his unitary intelligence is not as much or as great as universal intelligence. The unitary intelligence of the universe goes to make God, who he is embodiment of all intelligence. So man can be as great as God because he only a unit of God and God is the whole. Therefore, no man can measure God nor ask God questions because he is not as intelligent as God. Therefore, he cannot understand God. Therefore, it is presumptuous when God questions God. Sorry, when man questions God, his limited unitary intelligence. Man never dies, nothing dies. Man is made of body and spirit. The spirit is God. It is intelligence. The body of man is matter. It changes from living matter in the man to other matter in the soil. It is always the same matter. It doesn't die in the sense of how we understand death. It changes when man sleeps and passes away in the flesh. He goes to earth that lives on, out of which other man and things are formed. All matter is related, so man is related to earth, and earth is related to man. We eat ourselves over and over. When we eat the apple, the banana, the fig, the cherry, the grape, when we drink the water, we are eating and drinking ourselves over and over again. Nothing is lost, nothing dies. Do not be afraid of death, because what you call death is only change, and you are still in the universe, either in spirit of God, to whom your spirit goes after the change, or as matter which goes on forever. You are related to the flower, the beautiful rose, the trees, the fish, and other animals, just as you are related to God. All of you sprung from God, who is the universal intelligence. Do not be more cowardly than the rose, the apple, the coconut, the sheep, the fish, or the cow, to do that which all must do, that which we call death, to die. If you weep, you are a coward. Die like a man, because you are not lost. You are still there. You only weep because you are a glutton, because you think that you will not get any more to eat and drink. You think you will not get any more happy times, just as you have been feeding up on things and other beings who came here before you. So someone else must feed on you to make creation true. Otherwise, God would not be far to everybody, will not be fair to everybody and everything. God is fair and just to everybody. He is no respecter of things or persons. It's a poem that written by Marcus Garvey. I'm going to read on. It is everlasting as we know, this thing we call mysterious life. It has no beginning. Some say it's just a constant moving flow. It goes from this, then back to that, and on moves in course well planned. That circle, that circles universe and all that's passing through each single lot. Your life and mine is one long psalm, in tune with that of other beings, and everything that breathes the air, in seasons rough and seasons calm. One source, they say, contains the germ that grows in range of universe, and all go back to one cause, whose life supplies the spreading germ. By being part of source divine, each life has functions strictly drawn, for all must bow to endless time in form and shape that mark each line. So man must yield his flesh to dust, with plants and weeds and birds and fish, with rocks and mounts and lilies too, as trees break up in fiber crust. Each one like each one should like to hold his own and be a king in self alone. But this is not the way of life. The claims but one almighty crown. Thus disappointed, man grieve on, for he should like on his own stage, on strange way. Sorry, read it again. For he should like his own strange way. When suns and stars and steady moons would dance and change to suit his clan. It's safer to have one God, whose life is first and ever so, and all the rest to live in him with all the God they have ever had. For fleshly man would ruin things, he is controlled and source of life. The day would see an endless change for slaves who crow to haughty kings. Live on, good God of timeless worth, and keep man in his place to live, that when he rises to the height, he might perform his good on earth. For life right here is sad today, as lived by man in company. If earth goes on, the grave should come to lead us all in goodness way. The everlasting life by Marcus Garvey. That ends this chapter.
Great Garvey Day, brothers and sisters. Want to give a special shout out to Sister Naisha that was beautifully read on lesson 5 on God and all things godly. So I think it's very important in this lesson that we try to understand that we need to believe in something like greater than ourselves and the oneness of it all. As it says in the lesson, never deny that there is a God, God being universal intelligence. So, with that, we can also use this to recruit the Christian brothers and Muslim brothers around us because they will know we are also a God fearing organization. Also, there's a couple things when I was reading this chapter that I would like to highlight. Things are such as man never dies, nothing dies. Man is made of body and spirit, and the spirit is God. So, to a certain degree, I've took out that God is within us, and there's nothing for us really to fear when we're doing this work. Yes, we're up against a mighty enemy such as white supremacy and the white supremacists, but we should not fear death. And I know fear is a very powerful thing, but we must take solace in that we have a God and God is on our side. And I believe the great Marcus Garvey said that The war is won. The uh, yeah. Sorry, the war is won by those with no fear and believe in their God wholeheartedly. And I like to go on and say, like, when he's talking about how we should not be cowardly, do not become more cowardly than the roles. You know, when we're doing this work, we need to have a very strong backbone and take on all challengers and contenders because it's a very serious work that we are trying to initiate and do. And he goes on to say, if you weep, you are a coward. So it goes back to the other poem that he wrote, like when he's talking about having the stiff upper lip, because we must have a stiff upper lip because this work we're trying to do is not for the faint-hearted. I repeat again, it is not for the faint-hearted. This work we are trying to do is going to test us on all levels, and we must be ready for the fight. We must have our spiritual will on high alert. Also, I like to go on and say when he says like nothing, like as he said when it's kind of like Einsteinish when he's saying energy is never really lost. Everything returns. The food that drops on the floor, the birds will eat, go into manure and grow things. So you know we have to we yeah, we have to keep on the path and on the track and know that even if we're taken out, Marcus Garvey said, look for me in the whirlwind. You know what I'm saying? So I can't stress on more the importance of this chapter on God and all things godly. So I see the Honorable President Generals in the room. Like to salute you, sir. I see that Sister Kurt Kushti's in the room. Salute to you. So at this junction, I'd like to open up the floor to anyone that has anything to add to this lesson 5 on God from the African philosophy message to the people.
Yes, sir. Greetings, my brother minister in the building. I would like to just add to that what you were saying, when he was talking about he says never deny that there is a God. God being universal intelligence created the universe out of that intelligence, and it is intelligence that creates. And there's another quote that Garvey says when he goes, intelligence rules the world, and ignorancy carries that burden. And for me, that's a strong quote for me, because I'm not really into this whole religious business, me personally. Everybody knows I've had my fair share of religion, but nowadays I'm more of a, of what's I want my pie while I'm still around. I don't want to wait till I die to have my pie. But it's quite I don't know, I don't want to say important, but it's interesting how he sees the creator as intelligence, and how he sees that intelligence he rules the world. And he goes on to say, God is on the side of the winning team. And I find that is profound still. Do you know what I mean? That God is with the winner. If you want to know
Absolutely.
whose side God's on, look at the winner. That's where God is, and I think that's quite important still. Um, what else did I find from this chapter? Well, when he says, when a man sleeps and passes away in the flesh, he goes to the earth that lives on. So that's him basically saying that, we never die. Life don't die. We will be here. It's continuing. You know what I'm saying? Like the earth is forever. We're going to be a part of something that is eternal. And even there was another quote that he said in a different speech, yeah, and he goes, you can assassinate me, but you can't stop Africa's liberation. You understand what I'm saying? So it doesn't even matter if you assassinate me, the works is gonna continue. So I think those two things kind of kind of stood out to me, to be, if I'm honest, out of that whole chapter. And lastly, nothing is lost and nothing dies, which goes on to reaffirm the same stance that, you know, energy continues, life continues, nothing dies, we're eternal. And that's why I like to say Garveyism is eternal. It shall as long as the people are living to it, or as long as there's a need for it, Garveyism will be eternal. And just like human beings, I don't believe that there's a what you call it, expiry date on the earth. I think this earth will be forever. Human beings will go before the earth goes. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, that's my 2 pence, brother Reeds first. And I just want to send my greetings to the elder who just actually dropped off. I want to welcome Sister Kandaka in the building. Greetings, my sister. Sister Nash, great reading. Sister Kushti, how you doing there, my sister? I don't want you guys to be shy today. I know there's a lot of women on the panel today, and you know they say women are a bit more spiritual than men. So I expect the sisters to be giving us the wisdom this evening. And yeah, that's basically all I can. That kind of stood out for me on that chapter, you know, race first.
Okay,
From
thank.
I wanted to add something to that, please. I
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
feel like something in the chapters making me feel like God being universal, and it's not a religious thing for me either. It's more a spiritual thing. But sorry, I just closed the door. But at the same time, we are all the same. So what I was basically trying to say is that what I got out of this is that no man is better than no man. And it's unfortunate that there's a race of people that think that they are superior to us. But what they don't realize is that yes, there's no, like, we're all made in like and human beings, but we are a greater race, if anything. But at the same time, we still die the same, we still eat the same, we still live the same, we still. So that's the essence of where I'm trying to go with what I'm trying to say. And it's unfortunate that we live in a world that the way that we do. And I'd hope that, like Brother Race first, you were saying, it'd be a great way to recruit members of the community that are in other divisions to see that, we're just trying to do this thing as one people, as one
Mhm.
unity, so that we can strengthen what it is that we need to do, so that we can rise again. Because unfortunately, there is a culture out there that believe that they're on top of us in that sense. But we have to believe and have a faith that we can do this within a spirit of, if you want to look at God, or within a spirit of ourselves that is still the same as universal. And that we have to believe that and call upon that power and that strength, that we can know as a collective that we can rise again, because we're all in this race together, where you want to be or not, or you think that you aren't or you're not. We are. And we have to draw on that energy to bring us all together. What to say on that?
Absolutely, sister. I agree with you 100%. We are in a race. It is a race war, quote unquote. And yeah, we have to be organized in all areas of activity, spiritually, mentally, physically. We have to be organized. Absolutely. Is there anyone on the panel that wants to add anything? Okay, then. I guess not.
Let me
So,
ask. Let me ask a question. Let me ask a question. Why do you think it was that Papa Garvey was so ingrained in faith, and in terms of believing in God, as in the sense that he did, and Christ in the sense that he did? Where do you think that energy came from, and how can we use it to utilize today in a way that will uplift our people and each other?
well, for me, if you're asking me, we've always been a spiritual people. We've always believed in something greater than ourselves. But I think over the years, what's happened is that we've had too much kind of godism and not enough action behind. We've not really how we say, moved in faith. We've not really moved in the faith of trying to overthrow our oppressors. So I think the Honorable Marcus Garvey saw that, yeah, God, believing in God and a spiritual, as having a spiritual essence is one part of the equation, but there are other parts that we need to fill and get organized in my opinion.
Yes, I would add to that as well. You know, I think, well, I think coming from Jamaica as well would also play a part with these Christian beliefs at that time. But even when you study what Marcus Garvey believed, I don't think that that could be put into any form of Christianity, to be fair. But, you know, Marcus Garvey kind of understood that even in this chapter, he said, never deny there's a God. So he understood that there's a higher being or a higher essence to us as human beings. And I think that all of us naturally believe in that. There's a thing in Islam, I think they call it al-fitra, which is like the inside, the unwritten written book inside of us. And as black people, we have that. We have naturally God within us, where some people have to go to a book. We didn't need to go to a book to become spiritual. We know, we have an intuition, we have a conscience, and I don't think everybody else has a conscience. I think that there's other beings on the planet that don't have a conscience, and that's why they're able to do what they do to us and sleep at night. Because if we did what they do to us, we wouldn't be able to sleep as easy as them. They're killing kids, they're killing babies in the womb. Like, I don't think that there's ever been a black man in history that has done that much wickedness, just one man to anybody. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I mean, maybe there's been a couple tribal leaders, maybe, you know, if I'm being honest, but in general, we don't behave like that. So I would say that maybe his upbringing played that part, as well as, you know, Marcus Garvey's philosophy was that the black man must have his own religion, because he understood how religion binds communities together, it binds people together. And if the black man had one religion, we would be in a better position. If you look at the world right now, you have Muslims, Christians warring each other, etc., etc. And a lot of the times, yeah, we're joining in these wars, and these wars are really cultural wars. Like, we shouldn't even be a part of some of these wars that's taking place, but we dividing ourselves by, he's a Christian, he's a kafir or kufar, whatever they want to say, and, you know, he doesn't worship Jesus Christ, they're not getting eternal life and things like that. So Marcus Garvey believed that the black man should have one religion, and he actually set up a church at one stage, you know, for our people. And I think that even today, I kind of believe that the black man and the black woman should have one religion, where, you know, we see the creator as the almighty. We don't maybe don't have to share the European concepts of him. Like me personally, I know that a lot of my friends believe that man is God. I don't necessarily subscribe to that teaching. I don't believe man is God. I believe that man is a part of God, because we are part of creation. But yeah, I could go on for days, my sister. I don't want to keep talking on, but, you know, that's kind of what I think. I think that Garvey's upbringing was one of the reasons. I also think that he understood what religion does for a community. It brings people together. You know, people can build in that settings. If you look up back in the day in America, majority of the things took place in the church. The church was the Saturday school. The church was the evening school. The church in the daytimes was the nursery. Like, the black church in America used to play a vital role in our community. I don't know what happened to the black churches nowadays, where they can just take our money and don't give us nothing back. You know, and Garvey, at the same time, I'm saying that Garvey kind of saw that we've been too religious, too spiritual, and we've in being so spiritual, we've lost our grip on the world. While the whole world is moving and acquiring things, we're not getting anything. So we have to now leave that for somebody else, and now kind of become more materialistic, you know, in this world, in order for us to gain something. But yeah, I hope that answered some part of your question. I know I kind
It
of went on a
answered a lot of
tangent.
it, actually. It
I
did.
know
It
I kind
answered
of
a lot.
Yeah, I know I kind of
It
went on a
just
tangent, but
no,
yeah.
no, no. It's important. No, no, not at all. It's never a tangent coming for you ever. It's always important knowledge and wisdom always coming from you. But what it just made me think. I wonder if that's a way that we can speak to our community by going to the churches then, because at least if we can work with the fundamentals of what Papa Garvey's taught us, we can go to the churches like Race first said, as I said it a moment ago, and have a conversation with the pastors and say, listen, do you remember what church is set up for? And what we believe in, and a way of getting our, uniting us and building our community so that it can be big and strong, that we can work together as one nation,
Do you
because
know
that's the
what,
only
sister? Yeah,
problem.
the
Mm,
problem with that, yeah, or for me anyway, yeah, is that when you go to religious people these days, yeah, and you mention race, automatically they turn off. There's like they're scared of race, the question of race, the reasoning of race. They don't want to touch it. It's almost somebody's told them to stay away from race, anything to do with race. They want their church to be acceptable for everybody, Indian, white, everybody to come in. There's a church in my community, and a few years back before the COVID, we were trying to set up a Saturday school, and I've gone to talk to him about using the church space for the Saturday school. And to be honest with you, yeah, he was with it still. He didn't say no. I let him know. Obviously, it's a new pastor now, but I made him know that I come from this church. My grandmother used to come here when she was alive, and whatever. He kind of knew me anyway, but he was with it. He was COVID kind of came and messed it up, but his only thing was not making it accessible for only black children. He wanted it to
mm,
be open for the bigger community. And I was working mind games with him a little bit because I was like, of course, but we've got limited spaces in my mind. So I was just gonna use that
yeah,
card
you put
and
work
say we
in and
haven't got
try
the
to.
Yeah,
space.
bluff him. Bluff.
Yeah, yeah, the
Bluff.
world
Mm,
is run by a bluff race first. We know this. So I was gonna
Yeah.
bluff
mm,
him on that kind of avenue that yeah, we'll take everybody in the community. It's for the community, pastor. But we're only got a small amount of spaces in it, and then we're gonna allocate them
first
to
come,
who we
first serve.
feel
Mm,
needs it the most. But I think race, I think back in those days, yeah, because I've argued that, oh, do you know what? I'm there talking away, yeah, and we've got people waiting to join. Yeah, I think that back in those days, um, okay, someone's gonna have to come off a line, We can only have 6 people on at one time. So I don't know how we're gonna do this one now. But all right, so whoever, I'm not gonna call out nobody's name, but somebody log off and log back on in a minute. Yeah, when someone else
okay.
drops off, we can only have 6 people on at a time. But I think something happened um at one point in time. Oh, that's the point I was making, yeah. That when we came out of chattel slavery, yeah, I think that we was in a better position now than we are in now because we understood that we had work to do and we understood that it was a racial issue. Now we couldn't go certain places because of the color of our skin. Nowadays, you can go certain places if you've got as if you've got a certain friend group or if you've got a certain amount of money. So the race issue, people are trying to run away from it, but it's always about race and it will always be about race. No matter how much money you got, they're gonna tell you, well, we don't care how much money you got, you're still an NIGGA, and they're gonna treat you according to it. Look at what's happening to Puffy now. I don't know what he did or what he didn't do, but I haven't seen no evidence about any foul play, and it's a federal case, so they're not putting no evidence out there yet. And I'm waiting to see this evidence because I'm not a fan of Puffy neither. Yeah, everybody knows that I was on the Tupac side, but at the same time, I'm seeing them lynch this man. But the point I'm making is the amount of money that this man had, and look what happened to him. So your money can't save you. It's still about race. So I think that the churches, yeah, they need to go back to race and they need to add back the community into what they're doing because they have the building, they have the space that should be used for the community. After school care, there should be things in that church going on for after school. Weekend Saturday school should be in the church, and it used to be. The church played a great role at one stage. Do you get what I'm saying? I don't know what they've told
Mm-hmm.
these pastors now. Do you know what I mean? About to stay away from race. I even saw, do you remember that there's a church in Brixton, race first? The guy, what's his name? Um, Bishop John Francis.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yes,
That
indeed.
guy, yeah, when Tony Blair was running for prime minister, he came to that church to get the votes, the black vote.
Mm-hmm.
Now that shows me that these pastors, yeah, they got power in it because they got the people. So Tony Blair knew that, and he went there to get the black vote. Now we shouldn't have been able to be used like that. Tony Blair shouldn't have been. We should have been able to say, you know what? If you want our vote, give us this. And if you're not going to
Blessings,
give us this, you're not getting our vote.
blessings, beloved. Blessings,
Greetings,
good day.
greetings.
Greetings.
Well, welcome
Uh,
to our Sunday group discussion, sir.
yes, sir. Give thanks and praise. Brother Muhammad Kamal is who sent me the link and invite me to this discussion, and I give thanks to be amongst the group.
Yes, sir.
I am
Yes.
a, I was ordained in the part of the Anglican Communion, and what that has for the Garveyite community is the reality that it was George Alexander Maguire who,
Yes, sir.
you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Who,
Yes,
all right,
sir.
it was George Alexander Maguire who was kicked out of the Episcopal Church for being too black. That led to the establishment of the African Orthodox Church, which holds on by a lifeline to this day. I agree with everything you were saying. The problem is the church has accepted its role in this integrated society, and its role is clearly defined for us in the Bible. They are the scribes and the Pharisees, the ones who hold the people in bondage on behalf of the Roman authorities. That's their job. The only salvation for black faith in Christianity is to return to, I don't know the British equivalent, but to return to the hush harbors, the catacombs as they were. And that's something that's going to have to come from the people. If the people stop coming to church, the pastors will come find the people. And if the pastors know that the people will theologically slit their throats, not physically, but that you don't abide by the fuckery that these integrationist pastors have been spewing, that is the only salvation, because we must detoxify. In order to stay in league with Western society, our faith had to agree with certain things that were detrimental to Black identity. That's a must. And that is not going to change because, especially in the Anglican Communion, the church has done well to co-opt the clergy and keep them in bondage to the system. Priests get paid well. Priests get all kind of tax benefits, all kind of easy street living. They are the scribes and the Pharisees. They are not going to be the ones to lead this revolution. Don't count on that. That's all I would say right now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, brother Jabril. Great Garvey, they the one and all.
Great Garvey Day, great president.
There you go, every day.
Yes, sir. First race.
Race first.
Why is race first always the last one to say that? First race.
Race
Race
first.
first. Thank you, sir. And greetings to the sisters. Look like online as well. That's my spiritual leader. Y'all heard from there, brother Jabril, and yeah, he's strong on spiritual liberation and emancipating not only the mind from mental slavery, but the soul from spiritual slavery. So I was thinking about him as we were talking about this discussion on God, because it's kind of difficult to even understand anything about the most honorable Marcus Garvey unless you understand his view of God and universal intelligence. And if you knew his mission, since he was a young man, Mr. Garvey was always one who prided himself in spiritual obedience, and he considered uh, the redemption of Africa is us being obedient to the divine injunction. He spoke, about the tremendous odds of righteousness. When he wrote a letter to Booker T. Washington, he talked about he was on a mission from the Most High God. So you would think, in order to understand the gospel of Garveyism, you would have to, in some way, understand his views towards the Most High and this universal intelligence he talks about. I like the, some of the other aspects of the story, but the universal intelligence and the unitary intelligence of man was something I always thought interesting because when you think of universal intelligence or universal truth or universal consciousness, the word universal itself, again, is a unifying term. It's not talking about a multiverse or anything multiple. It's talking about bringing it all together into one universal intelligence. So it's one objective reality, one universal truth, and one divine order. And once we align with this divine order, that we synchronize our unitary intelligence with this universal intelligence, then we have that oneness we talked about, the oneness of the Almighty, that one God that will automatically imply itself to one aim, which will therefore lead us to one solid destiny that's in our best interest. But when we are, out of line with that, when we believe in all these racist institutions that tell us contrary teachings about the Most High, where we learning to deify their whiteness and demonize our own blackness at the same time, when we see that all these political and religious hypocrites, like Brother Jabril was talking, Mr. Garvey talked about, he called Christianity one time a form of religion practiced by the millions, but it's misunderstood and unreal to the majority as gravitation is to the savage. We profess to live in the atmosphere of Christianity, yet our acts are as barbarous as if we never knew Christ. He taught us to love, yet we hate, to forgive, yet we revenge, to be merciful, yet we condemn and punish. And still we're Christians. If hell is what we are taught it is, then there will be more Christians there in the days of all creation. To
Cha.
be a true Christian, one must be like Christ and practice Christianity. That is the bishop does, but as he says, for if our lives were to be patterned after the other fellows of all of us, the bishop, the priest, and the layman would ultimately meet around the furnace of hell, and none of us, because of our sins, would see salvation. So again, we're not, trying to follow some of these clowns straight, on the road to hell, because they don't know what they're talking about. They're only doing what they were told in these westernized racist institutions what to do. And by us adopting their religious philosophy that's based in their cultural and political philosophy that's not in our best interest, we actually wind up doing more harm to ourselves and thinking we're somehow getting in touch with the Almighty, but we're actually getting further and further away from Him by not understanding, some basics about religion. And just because Mr. Garvey was in religion, I just want to make it clear. Just like Malcolm said, I am a Muslim. My religion is Islam, but my religion don't make me no fool. Mr. Garvey wasn't a fool when it came to religion. He wasn't just get with nitwit. In fact, another quote of his I used to like. He said once that I question the love, the majesty, and the omnipotence of that God who would make and create 400 million folks to be slaves, to only be hewers of wood and drawers of water. That would not be a God. That would be a devil. The white man tells us in his lying scriptures, and I want you to understand me clearly on this. I am as much Christian as any Pope of Rome, as much as any Christian as any Archbishop of Canterbury. I am as much as Jesus Christ, but I refuse to believe all the lying stuff that the white man put into that Bible. So this Garvey was a spiritual man, more than anything. He believed in certain spiritual laws and principles that reconnected us with one another. He talked about the God of Ethiopia, the God of Africa is the God that we follow. And so, to understand how deeply spiritual he was, how um, how driven he was, to follow that not only divine injunction, but he once called it the Great Commission, to have our own vine and fig tree. As God created this planet and gave us, Africa, Europe for the Europeans, and He gave Asia to the Asians, and He also gave Africa to the Africans. So why should we allow some other group from somewhere else who He created to come and take what He gave to us? When we forfeit that, when we allow this person, and to some extent we have to be responsible for him allowing him to do it. because he's not superior to us, and if we are equal to all other people on the planet, then the only way he can come take it is if we made some mistakes and allowed him to come get it. But that therefore shows we can also claim it back, and and be promised that we're going to get it because we're operating with that tremendous odds of righteousness once again. As you'll see in many of Mr. Garvey's writings and that of the UNIA, we believe if you do right and you work hard at it, you will accomplish anything you will. Just like one of the rituals say that the persons that come out of Egypt and Ethiopia will stretch forth their hands unto God, except the Lord build a house, their labors but lost to build it, except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh, but in vain. So, it's important that we root ourselves in that same spiritual drive and conviction Mr. Garvey had. He was a Christian. He believed Christ to be the great sacrifice, standard bearer, of sacrifice and love and these sorts of principles. And he tried to emulate those in helping our race to become independent thinking and, more righteous, group of people. But anyway, I just wanted to say those couple of things as I think about that chapter.
Yeah, man.
It's a short chapter, but it's a powerful chapter.
And it's like these are the things that have to be extolled by us, right? When we're talking about reform of the church and the separation between the church, which is the institution, and the church, which is the body, right? Which is the body of Christ, which is the people. And this one God that we supposed to believe in, when we say we believe in one God, when we say one God, one aim, one destiny, we get caught up in the wrong kind of intersectionality in the West. In the West, we have intersectionality with those we think are Christian. And those we think are Christian are doing all kinds of dumb shit in the name of Jesus. And we don't have intersectionality with ourselves. And so we don't have one God that wants African sovereignty as a must. One God that believes in African sovereignty. I don't care. And I don't believe Mr. Garvey would care what your religion is. I don't care what your practices are. Does your God believe in African sovereignty? If your God believes in African sovereignty, then however we worship that one God, we will be on one aim and we will follow through on one destiny. But if we got a God that somehow believes that these white folks is also approved of, that they are Christian like he wants us to be, that they are not heretics, if we somehow have a one God that says we have to uphold an Israel that is committing genocide, then we are completely going to be lost. We need a one God that says, you know what? The AES is on the rise. Mr. Garvey's plan can be effectuated across the African diaspora if we all focus our efforts on improving trade and relations with the alliance of Sahel states. That regardless of whatever our persuasion is, we see one self-determined aim, and that's a sovereignty for Africans at home and abroad. But if we don't have a God that wants African sovereignty, I don't think we ever make it.
Greetings, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Greetings, family. I've got a question to the discussion. Just on the back of what we just heard, because most of the religions that our family tends to follow are Abrahamic religions, and they definitely don't have any space for what you just said that they need to have. Like their religions don't believe anything about race first, especially black people putting themselves first. We know that in their religions, and that's what Brother Minister says. When he tends to talk to Christians, there's just a blank when he mentions race. And if the goal for the UNIA is to galvanize the people to come in, then we have to accept that they're going to be from other religions, specifically religions that do not believe in putting race first. And especially if we're trying to get them into the UNIA, if you know that going to them first in regards to race first puts them off and they just shut down automatically, what is the plans to go around that? So basically my two questions are, what are the plans to approach people from Abrahamic religions. And also the notion of knowing that, um, the UNIA says all you have to be is black, right, and have the right mentality. So, you know, knowing that we're bringing in Abrahamic faith when their faith does not have a philosophy of putting black people first, how do we combat that as well?
Well, I cannot answer for the UNIA, but I can answer as a theologian how I would approach that. First and foremost, we have to realize that all of the Abrahamic faiths came out of Africa.
One.
Abraham was in Africa.
Yes, sir.
We have to also realize that the Lord even wanted to make it clear that he understood that Jerusalem would be carved away from Africa in thought, word, and deed, because Jerusalem was Africa. And so the Lord chose to have his ark of his covenant with his people moved from Jerusalem deeper into Africa to Aksum, which makes the Axumites, the Ethiopians, of who we all are, the keepers of the Ark of the Covenant, the ones who have that sacred relationship with the Lord God Almighty. We also know Jesus Christ was an African. He could not hide in Egypt if he were not an African. Muhammad, peace be upon him, found his peace and solace in Ethiopia, to which he laid out a hadith, which most Muslims, Arab Muslims, have violated to this day, that Ethiopia should never be proselytized. So the Abrahamic faiths are deeply African. We just don't understand that.
Yep. Well, let me add something to that too. From the UNA perspective, Mr. Garvey talked about spiritual, conscientious spiritual worship among the masses. The UNIA never adopted any official religion. Mr. Garvey had his, religious belief, but again, he wasn't tethered to every tenet of it, particularly those tenets that didn't um, reflect appreciation for his race. It didn't contribute to a racial, spiritual liberation or racial uh, theology that spoke to our needs. Oftentimes, people would, throw these kinds of, have these churches plastered with white angels and white, Jesus and white everything, So I mean, if the angels were created by God and they're white, and Jesus created by God, he's white, then what do you think God in your mind is going to look like? Old white man. And so, in teaching us that, everybody know the old saying about the, I think it was Desmond Tutu, arguably, who had mentioned that when the white folks came to Africa, um, we had the land and they had the Bible, and they told us to close our eyes and pray. And when we opened our eyes, they had the land and we had the Bible. There are different people, like Brother Jabril was talking about, who are as the Pharisees of old, and many of the modern, not even modern, but major religious systems, who are hypocrites and poisonous snakes, who, as the scripture talks about, strain out the gnat, yet gulp down the bull. How you going to strain out a gnat that you think can contaminate your food, then you're going to gulp down a nasty, dirty, raw bull. So basically exposing there's a lot of hypocrisy in all the religions. Even in some traditional African faiths, there's some levels of hypocrisy in there. But if you have a spiritual, conscious understanding of your God, it supersedes religious dogma sometimes that may or may not be misinterpreted by religious leaders or taught by religious institutions. When you have a conscientious spiritual worship, when you were created by the Most High and understand your divinity to infinity, then you can see the God in you You may not be the Almighty, but there is, in fact, Mr. Garvey once pointed out that we are gods. In fact, he said, "Men, you are God. You are God. You are of God, absolute, and that in you is the spirit of the great Creator, the whole of which made man, the whole which constitutes the one God. You are the highest instrument of God's divinity. You are the highest of God's creation. And if you are of African descent, and you understand that, therefore, God must some ways be black and care about the interests of black people. Everybody can have their God and can see them through their own tentacles, but if we see the God of Ethiopia, the God of Africa that looks like us, and whether that God communicates with people through whatever religious faith, whatever spiritual system, Makan, Yoruba, et cetera, et cetera. Um, there's certain universal commonalities that, as long as you have a certain spiritual appreciation for the blackness of God, and that was a disputed point. Mr. Garvey had one time people question him. God is not, black or white. He's invisible. How can you, say he has a color? But he pointed out again, the law of anthropomorphology is that everybody sees the divine, even the prophets and who wrote the Christian Bible, the Coptic Bible, etc. The prophets of old described the Almighty, the world being in his hand, irritating by touching the eyeball of God, he'll draw you into his bosom. When you talk about a bosom or chest or hands and eyes, these are human attributes that, if you're going to see the divine through these human attributes, then these attributes should look like you, because you were created in his image. So in doing that, it begins to change our view that we don't have to bow down to this white man and follow his every cultural and religious teaching, because we are just as entitled to connecting with the spirit of the Almighty, that universal intelligence, again, as anyone else. And so, once you have at least a certain conscientious spiritual worship, your religious, is on you. I mean, whatever set of rules or beliefs or dogmas you think make sense, that's for you to choose. I think it was prophet, not a prophet, but a philosopher once said that all people are born free, yet everywhere in chains. You're born free to make certain choices, but wherever you're born or whatever, class you may be, whatever race or religion your family may be in, they typically thrust you into thinking and doing things a certain way. But when we learn to grow up and think for ourselves, we're supposed to remove some of these chains and begin to think intelligently and what's in our best interest. And that's based a lot on our African identity, etc. So once you know who you are and what your develop a spiritual system of worship that um, that is supportive of your self identity and your best interest, then we don't really care whether you adopt this one, Candomblé, Yoruba, Voodoo. I mean, it could be one of the ancient Kemetic, books. All along, intelligence is intelligence. What's right is right. I mean, I love religion, but at the same time, you don't need religion to be a moral, upright, spiritual person in that sense, because long before we had the books, we had this thing called fellow feeling. We had a simple thing where we could not want to happen others, to do to others as we want, done to us. So we don't want to, hurt nobody. We don't want to be hurt. We don't want to lie or kill anybody. We don't want them lying to us. So once you have just that empathy for another human being, I mean, you don't need a whole lot of books and commandments telling you what to do. You don't need a whole lot of religion. I mean, I wouldn't forsake the gathering of people who want to, be righteous and moral and upright, but at the same time, you don't need it if you understand certain basics. So
But if
Mr.
I,
Garvey didn't try to impose a religion, but he did try to uh, develop a spiritual understanding of the Almighty and our relationship to it, so that we can all be on one accord as we work toward the one God, one name, and fulfilling that one destiny of being, a race of happy, sovereign, independent, liberated, people who are not dependent on others to do for them what we can do for ourselves. And his brother, I heard you mention it. I think I was just coming online, brother minister. Mr. Garvey's comment I always think about when we talk about the God is Napoleonic question he would bring up sometimes, that one of the soldiers in Napoleon's army once asked Napoleon, when two Christian nations go to war, on whose side does God support? And he said, and what was the answer, Brother Minister?
Yeah, he's on the winning side.
Yeah, the side with the strongest battalion.
That's right. That's right.
So I mean, we believe, we have faith, but we also have to do the work. Because we don't do the work, we can't just sit around and wait for somebody to do it for us and think, oh, God's going to do it. Nah, He gave you the power to do it. So He is doing it through you, as long as you're doing your
And
best. So He blesses efforts.
see,
So anyway, I just want to make
I agree with that, bro. I do. And because I agree with that, it's like it's just I think we need religion. Here's why. Religonare. What is this, the thing that rejoins you unto your righteous mind? We are a people that have been taken out of our righteous mind. We need to be rejoined unto it. I'm not saying which religion is the right religion. The right religion is the one that rejoins us unto our righteous mind.
deep, brother. You my spiritual leader. I'm listening.
The problem is we have not had religion to do that. I talked to Dean John Kinney, a theologian out of Virginia Commonwealth University, School of Theological, whatever. He talks about the need for the church to detoxify our community. And that's what did not happen. We just embraced, after 400 years of our oppression, after living amongst these people, we embraced their way of knowing. We never detoxified. We accepted that, oh, we all believe, we're all of the Abrahamic faith. We all believe in ultimately the same God. Our clergy, Christian, Muslim, doesn't matter, didn't point out to us, no, no, no. We do not believe in the same thing. We do not believe in the same God. And so our people were left vulnerable. When the Israelites were brought out of Egypt, or let me say it this way, while they were in Egypt, they had no religion. Religion was established with the law, with Moses in the wilderness. They needed religion because they had spent 400 plus years living amongst the Egyptians, adopting their ways of knowing, their ways of doing, their ways of being. And they needed to be rejoined unto their righteous selves. They needed a process that would hold them accountable as they purged themselves of all the toxicity that they had embraced willingly and unwillingly along this way while in exile. We have embraced a sickness. We need something that is going to hold us accountable to the process of detoxification, because as we all know, when you're an addict, if you go into rehab, you will have withdrawals. You will crave that toxicity, and you will do all that you can to re-embrace that which you wanted to let go of. And the reason you check yourself into rehab is because you need a community that will hold you accountable. Even when you want to run away yourself, will hold you accountable to detoxification. I don't know how African people who have been captive by the West will detoxify and ever be well, if not through some process by which we are held accountable to upchucking all that we have been fed for this time.
your lips to God's ears. Well, what do you think about that, brother Race? First,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So with me, my obviously, as we all know, my name is Brother Race First, innit? And I hold the line. I try to hold a very strong line on race first. So if I'm trying to talk to a Christian brother or sister, and we have displayed all the evidence here that the people on the panel have talked about, and you're still holding the line of, oh, they ain't that bad and we all need to get along to go along, then I'm gonna have to leave you where I kind of found you, because that 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 energy is contagious. It's sticky. It can stick to you. Like, I try to hold the high line with race first with everything I do. Obviously, in this country, it's a it's a bit difficult, but where I can, I try to hold the line. Go to a black barber, try and see a black accountant, try and have a black pastor per se, try and go to the black church, try and have a black mechanic. Like, I really try to hold the line. So when the sister's saying those of our people that can't really see it, it's yes, it's a very nuanced and difficult thing, because obviously in Garveyism we're supposed to try and help everyone, and within our race, give them time to acclimatize, but there has to be a cut-off point when we've presented all the evidence and you see it's crystal clear as day that this is the enemy. We need to be on the black side, the right side, bell on black, and don't look back. Yeah, otherwise you'll get cracked, and we've been getting cracked. So for me, it's race first over everything.
Yes, sir. I like that.
I didn't know you were a
I like
poet.
that, my brother. But you know what I say to them as well? Yeah, I say that Christ. They say that Christ. Well, this is what they say, not what the book says, because the book says he came for Pacific people. Yeah, but what they say is that Christ came to save the whole world. Well, did Christ save the whole world? No. What happened? They killed him. So if Christ, who you say is the Son of God, came to save the whole world and bring the brotherhood of man together and failed, don't expect me to do it. I'm just a more man that came from the ends, the ghetto or whatever. So I can't accomplish that. That is a bigger task than me to bring humanity together. But we can build our community and bring our community together, because charity, they say, starts at home. So I kind of give them that reasoning, but also, my sister, to answer your question as well, yeah, you lead by example. If a brother or a sister sees you as a good person, regardless of your religion, regardless of your doctrine, if you have good character and you're a good person, they would want to be a part of whatever you're about. They may not agree with everything that you say, but they will help out. All it takes is for them to come to a meeting maybe one day and hear something that connects to their ancestral memory bank, and then they're ready to rock and roll. I don't believe in giving up. If it becomes stressful for me, I might take away myself, or I may try a different approach. But ultimately, information is what we give them with inspiration for their transformation. And we're transforming them into Garveyites. That's the only solution for that I see. I've been in the church, I've been in the mosque, I've been in the Rasta temple, and there is problems in all of those things. There's problems maybe in Garveyism as a building, but the doctrine isn't wrong. The doctrine is the only thing that's going to save us. So I think that regardless of your religion, you can be a Muslim and a Garveyite. You can be a Christian and be a Garveyite. You can be an atheist and be a Garveyite. You can be a Rastafarian and be a Garveyite. You can be whatever doctrine you want and be race first. It's okay. And to what the I believe he's a pastor. I don't want to put that term on him if he isn't. But what our brother was saying before, if these stories are true, there's no prophet that came out of Europe. Everybody comes from Africa. All of them came from Africa. There was no white prophet. You can find, in fact, if you can find one, show me, please. There's been no white prophets.
And it is true.
Yeah, not if it's true. Yeah, 100. So we know that we as a people are naturally, like I was saying before, this is why religion has gotten hold of us to the point that we're sleeping in religion, because we need something to be a part of. It's a part of our nature. Even when you look at the ancient continent, we were very tribal people. We still are. We're tribal in our Christianity. We're tribal in our Islam. Wherever we are, we're tribal. But Garveyism is the only thing that don't allow tribalism.
Yeah, I'm gonna say to that too. They're right. That the only thing is going to destroy, which is one of the biggest issues that poisons everything around us, is racism. But race first is the only thing that's going to stop or relieve us from the uh, the negative effects of racism. And yeah, the race first philosophy. And you look at why people always wondered why Mr. Garvey didn't adopt an official religion of the organization. Because everybody from Arnold Josiah Ford to George Alexander McGuire and others wanted to become the official church or the official religious institution of the UNIA because of the millions of members that he was able to attract. But you can't really unify the race on religion. I mean, it's important that we all of whatever religion have a certain moral consensus, but you can't really. If you look at a typical church, churches are not unified. I mean, people don't really unify around religion. That's why African fundamentalism teaches about um, no religious scruples or political machinations should divide us. But you look at a religion, people within the same church, under the same pastor, same congregation, on the same pew, will have you ask all of them a different question, 5 questions. I bet you they give you all different answers. What do you think about religion? What do you think about abortion? What do you think about capital punishment? Everybody will say, well, I think God would do this or do this, that, yeah, because people don't really unify. But somehow Mr. Garvey was able, with his philosophy, his overarching philosophy, take people of all these different religions who were around at the time, who were all struggling, dealing with these churches and these mosques and these I forgot the Jewish institutions, synagogues or whatever, that were dealing with our people but weren't affirming our racial identity and heritage, etc. So he was able to say, well, all these faiths have a certain commonality, that we have our own vine and fig tree. The Almighty created this earth for everyone to have something of their own. Yet we don't have our own. So let us work collectively together. And somehow this interpretation, because the thing is, the only thing that's stronger than a religious person's religious book is the religious interpretation of that book. So if you come somehow begin to understand their book and what it actually says and how it can teach you to um, become a righteous and sovereign, independent person. They have African liberation theology. Then you can find a way, regardless of what religion you into, to unify the people, and they still can be religiously, as separate as day and night. But they all have a common, unified understanding of, or conscious spiritual worship, that they all, have on the same mission with the same aim, toward one same destiny. But still, I can be Yoruba, you can be a Khan, you can be this, but I still can relate to what you're saying, because I'm not teaching to hurt people or to harm or to do certain things. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't do A, B, C, and D. Everybody's talking something close to the same, um, teaching the same righteousness, so to speak, and same kind of general behavior, but we're just not adding that element of you know, racial supremacy and all this kind of crap that these Westerners try to instill in us for the obvious purpose of enslaving us and regulating and subjugating us. So if we take that crap out of any and all the faiths that exist, yeah, it will draw us closer back to the Almighty. Everybody has their preference, but yeah, but the unifying philosophy is what I tend to focus more on than anything. A unifying spiritual philosophy and conscientious understanding of the Almighty, which Mr. Garvey tried to do, void of whatever religious teaching you may have. There shouldn't be certain universal foundation there or fundamentals.
Brother President, as you were speaking, I was going to say the same thing. Exactly that. If anything, the one thing that's the commonality between us all, and Brother Minister said it earlier, is that we all have faith in something, and spirit is one thing that doesn't waver. So everything else can waver, and everything else we put on with our man, within the vessel that we are, which is man, which then wavers and confuses things. But spirit is the one thing that doesn't change. And if we remember that in a moment and in the times of hardship and in the times of everything that's happened, how we got to where we are now, we can use that as a way of being able to come together as one and remember, or put it into context of what Papa Garvey was saying. So I was just very much relating to what you're saying. I was going to come and say something similar, but yeah, I just wanted to say that I identify with that completely. And it is something that we have in us. It's in because that's where we come from. That is source. It's spirit first. So if you want to put it as one God, that's where it is. And then we go from there for one aim, one destiny.
And just for clarity, even though race first is our mantra, it's something that we constantly say, and we believe it. But it technically, according to our creed, the order of allegiance to us is first to our God, second to our family, third to our race, and then to our country or nation. So when it comes to, we are race first because God and family are racially aligned. So yeah, the Garvey is going to be race first in principle. That term Mr. Garvey popularized. Others had said it before him, but he popularized when he made the statement, in a world of wolves, one must go armed, and the best defensive weapon within reach of the first race is practice the race first in all parts of the world. So if we are to practice that, on the economic, political, social, even spiritual level, yeah, we would be protected from the racist folks who are trying to exploit us for our ignorance and who put us in a certain position in the first place. But even though we are race first, technically we are God first, God fearing, spiritual, divine order, respecting people first, and then our allegiance is to our family, and then the extended family, which is the rest of the race, etc. So yeah, we race first, but we also God first.
Amen.
And sometimes I interpret God as Garveyism over death, or Garveyism or death, I should say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can get jiggy with that.
yeah, Garveyism or death. That's it. Even we do things right, we're damned. So, but anyway, but yeah, that's an important discussion to have on the whole concept of God, because some of us try to escape it and don't want to talk about it. We get shy when, oh, okay, we ain't get into that religion stuff because I don't believe in what you believe, and you don't even know what I believe, but we can have some common ground if we, again, go back to that universal intelligence or that objective reality of our situation and, find out what is right to do and, work toward that, um, consensus, then the rest of them, mandate our course.
Amen. I don't think that, and let me say, I apologize because I was not aware of this call, so please forgive me because I'll probably be ducking out before you all finish. And my wife is putting out lunch for us all. And but I want to thank y'all for allowing me to be in the space with you. I appreciate it, and hopefully I'll be able to be welcomed back. Um, you know, I don't believe we have to believe the same thing, except for that we believe in a God or a higher intelligence that wants and uses, exercises power in the goal of African sovereignty. Like if we have a if at a baseline we all have a God, like whoever we're talking to, whatever you believe. Okay, we don't believe the same thing. Does your God believe in and exercise power towards for in favor of African sovereignty? Or is your God fine with you being subjugated to white supremacy? If that's your God, then okay. You know, he who has ears to hear, let them hear. Not everybody's going to come. If I put that before you and you're like, you know, like the scripture says, choose ye now, choose life or death. If I put that before you, the choice is does your God want, use power toward the sovereignty of African people? Or is your God okay with the subjugation of African people? Okay, if you believe that, then you know, what more can I do? Let me just, I mean, if we were on the plantation together back when we lived in the days of slavery, Burning Spear would ask us if we remember. Back when we were in the days of slavery, we wouldn't hang around those Negroes no more because we know those Negroes would get us caught. So I don't know if everyone's gonna make it. You know, everyone didn't leave Egypt. And then of those who left Egypt, there were those who went back. Those who made it to the promised land are not the same amount that left Egypt. And those that left Egypt were not the same amount that were in bondage in Egypt. Some remained. Some are going to remain here too. And we got to be able to transcend that and overcome that, because the thing that has kept us from leaving plantation and leaving bondage is our love for our brothers and sisters and not wanting to leave them behind.
Powerful words, my brother. And just for the record, I think they said Moses led 3 million people. Garvey led 12.
Right?
And just in case somebody wondering, well, Garvey being known as the Black Moses, when was there a white Moses?
Right?
Maybe I'm missing something.
Right?
Yes, indeed.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Exactly. There we go. Because he lived in Pharaoh's house. Had to be black.
Yes, indeed.
Hey, peace and blessings,
Absolutely.
brothers. I appreciate you, brothers and sisters. I forgot. Please forgive me, sisters. I appreciate being amongst y'all. Thank you for your time.
Always a blessing having you around, my brother.
Amen. Amen.
Yes, sir. Thank you for participating, and I hope you enjoy your lunch. Give our regards to your wife and family.
Amen. Thank you, and to you and yours.
Yes, sir.
Peace be with you all.
Peace and blessings, brothers.
Everything.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That was a good discussion there. Thank you for the brother there for taking part. May he eat well with the family, and may they say their prayers before they partake in the meal. Absolutely.
Yeah, to the black god of African redemption.
No doubt about it. No doubt.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We can't integrate this.
No, it's impossible.
It's not at all.
It's impossible to get any results. You know, like I was just as we're talking about these religious things, a quote keeps coming into my head that me and my oppressor can't have the same God.
It wouldn't make sense.
Huh?
It can't make sense. Just on take religion out of it on a logical sense. It couldn't. You and your could not have the same God. He has to be serving something else.
It has to be, because that means that God is allowed. Like, you know, like there's people out there, you know, I know I'm taking this somewhere else here, so forgive me, but there's people out there that believe, yeah, that we're supposed to have gone through slavery, we're supposed to be oppressed, we're supposed to do this, and they believe that it's come from God. I don't subscribe to that. I know maybe some people on the call might, but I don't subscribe to that. I believe that man make choices, yeah, and based on those choices, things happen. Like right now, we are in the situation we're in out of choice because we don't want to organize, or we don't can't get together, and we can't oversee our little divisions. That's the only reason why. There's no God that is allowing us to be killed right now. There's a brother on death row. 2 days left. They're gonna execute our brother, and he's innocent. And nobody can't tell me that's God's plan. because that must mean that this devil on earth is more powerful than our God. And I can't believe that. I can't subscribe to that. I won't. I won't, brothers and sisters. I can't. I can't. You know, the only way for us to beat white supremacy is to live our own culture, and our culture is Garveyism. That's the only culture that's worked. It's the only culture that this is like I'm singing the same song every week. It's the only thing that's ever worked, brothers and sisters. Christianity hasn't worked for us. Islam hasn't worked for us. Rastafarian hasn't worked for us. But
But not just that,
Garveyism,
Brother Minister. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's the only thing that matters. That's the point. It's the only thing that matters, because everything else is just division. It's just more pain. It's more confusion. It's not working for us. And this is why I think why the world is in such array and why we're all over the place. Because we're not remembering what has gone before and what needs to happen now. So all these choices, you're saying that a lot of it is choices, yes. But it's like we've forgotten who we are. And until we can remember who we are and what the race is about and what we're supposed to do, we're going to stay in this mess. How does it change?
by remembering, as you rightly said, by remembering. And how do we remember?
Yeah, we gotta. Well, that's that word itself. Remember. We gotta be members again of one common family, one common association, one common gathering, and the power in numbers will take care of the rest. You know, we have one mind and one. You know, we outnumber a lot of people who are regulating and subjugating and dominating us, and that's, you know, like I said, I remember Malcolm X mentioning that one time. How is it so few white people rule so many black people? And that's because those black people are unorganized. You know, you know, many of us have the same idea. Many of us have the same concept. In fact, when I used to do, you know, first, you know, join the movement and start recruiting, one of the questions I used to pose to people was, you know, how would you like to see black people unify? You know, and do you think that's ever possible? And people are like, well, no, I don't think it's possible. But yeah, man, what do you think would happen if we came together? Man, if we came together, they have all kinds of thoughts and ideas. I said, did you know it actually happened one time? Maybe not every single person on the planet, but millions of us came together around one, you know, program, in one program, with one, you know, common set of ideas. And the things we were able to produce will blow your mind if you do. And it happened, and you know nothing about it. But sometimes that's what begins to pique people's curiosity, that it did happen, and we were able to do all that, and I didn't even know about it. I mean, how did that happen? You know, how did they whitewash that from out of the history books, but then tell us about everything else? You know, Mr. Garvey was able to really tap into the traditional spiritual system of traditional Africa, in the sense I always say he was channeling Mayat, in a sense, because, you know, he restored our sense of dignity and destiny through certain principles we call universal African nationalism. Universal African nationalism was our ability to do for ourselves, to have our nation states, our, you know, nation formations. It was the rationalism of nationalism. We had our hunting and gathering parties. We had, you know, spiritual institutions, healing circles. We had all these, you know, different schools of higher learning, et cetera, that we, you know, from way before Timbuktu, you know, the mystery school system, et cetera. But we had these things till they came, snatched us physically, took us away, and the only way they were really able to do that. And this is one of the argument I had sometimes with people who are cultural elitists, not people who have a certain conscientious understanding of culture, traditional African culture, but those who think it's the sole solution to everything and all of our problems. Well, I say culture is great. Ethnic culture is very important, but it's not enough. If it were enough, we would have never got kidnapped and brought here in chains. We had all the culture, traditional African culture in the world when a white man came, but that wasn't enough. It was important. You know, ripping us from that made us weaker, but that alone, it wasn't enough, because we also had tribalism mixed into that. You know, we were kind of, you know, cultural elitists. You know, we saw the Fulanis getting, you know, attacked, but the Ashantis didn't do anything. Or we see the Yoruba being attacked, but the Igbo might not want to do something. Or we see this group, you know, but this group don't want to do anything about it. So we kind of sat around and let our little cultural disputes and tribal wars divide us, and that's allowed this one group of individual tribes to come together as one race and come and dominate us one by one. It's taking us over and destroying, decimating our communities and underdeveloping our continent, restructuring it to fit the needs of Europe. But they can only do that because we didn't have a unifying philosophy back then. We had a lot of cultures that were similar, but they were separated. And so, I mean, culture is good, but we still need a unifying philosophy, that overarching unifying philosophy, despite whatever cultural preference we may have. And so, some people want to be the culture police, and they see a sister who hair might not be kinky and curled up this kind of way or whatever, nappy. Yeah, I know you probably want this, you may prefer that, but but that doesn't mean that she can't contribute to the African Redemption Fund. That doesn't mean she can't be a good mother to her children and, feed and provide and keep them clean. And, oh, father, can't do this and the other because he ain't saying Hotep, Shemharu, and all this. He can say what's up. He's still a brother. We need all of us to be one, whether we share the same cultural language, preference, clothing, etc. Is much bigger than just a ethnic cultural gathering of sorts. It's important to understand some of that heritage and what we went through, and what we should have pride in our value system. But again, culture alone is not going to solve this thing. We need really a unifying racial philosophy that targets, the racial discrimination and subjugation and exploitation that we've been victim of for many, many years. So the only one who's ever been able to put that package together just right and we scare the hell out of these folks, not just whites, the Arabs, the Asians, and everybody else. And still to this day are terrified of Mr. Garvey. That's why they still character assassinating him long after they tried to physically assassinate him. They maintain, to this day, almost 100 years after he died, a negative, interpretation of him in all these history books, a, disregard for his great accomplishments. And we really need to, kind of examine how to reach our people with this, with this gospel of Garveyism in such a way that, that won't be able to undermine our success in growing and building and practicing those universal African nationalist principles again. And we'll, hopefully never allow their little tricks and these groups in America now are starting to be real divisive, starting, oh, we ain't African, they Africans and we this, and we ain't that, we that. These people, they got this group called ADOS, which I call a dumb organizational strategy, because they try to bring people who were born in America together and say, oh, these people from Africa just coming over here, they want our reparations money. No, we got to separate ourselves from them. We distinguish ourselves as different people so that we can get a bigger check. But if you got to divide yourself in order to beg the white man for a check, you ain't gonna get it. You better off coming together as a race and unifying and being able to exact justice not only in America but in Africa and the UK and everywhere else around the globe. But to divide and conquer ourselves is not in our best interest. It's not even remotely intelligent. The same thing with this FBA group. Whatever I call them a bunch of foolish black A's, and for their weird philosophy. Again, there's another divide and conquer technique that seems to be making the white man overjoyed. But it's all the stuff is just antithetical to the power of numbers and unity and the spirit of Garveyism. So these are a lot of philosophy. I don't know who's bringing this silly stuff up, where it's coming from, but we need to defeat that with the rationalism of nationalism, as we had years past. Using the same gospel that worked before, as they say, tried, tested, and true. And since insanity means doing the same thing and expecting different results, sanity must mean doing the same thing and expecting the same result. So if it worked before, it will work again. And we just got to continue to continue the game, moving for the same strategy, and we will accomplish everything we will.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Rightly said. Rightly said. There can be no division. We all have to be unified in what we're trying to do. But, you know, even if there is division and people want to claim other groups, other tribes, other nationalities, or so on and so forth, we just have to be the best. We have to show our one. You're backing the wrong horse going down that road of FBA or whatever you want to call it, whatever they're calling themselves or whatever they're trying to divide themselves in the continent or the West Indies or in South America. Yeah, we will prove that that is a losing formula, and this Garvey system will feed you from now to eternity in every aspect of your life. Yes, indeed.
Yes, sir. I just want to do a time check. We got the last half an hour we're entering into now. So I don't know if there's anybody else that's on the panel that wanted to say something that hasn't said anything or wanted to add to what's been said. Now is your time, brothers and sisters.
Hi everyone, maybe I can add up something.
Of course, my sister.
Yeah, we're talking about the culture, everything, God, religion, everything. Um, you see, Garveyism for me is the origin of everything, and Garvey was able to go back to the beginning. Maybe at his time he was not able to say Christianity is rubbish, because most of the people in the West Side were Christian. So maybe that wasn't something positive for the movement for him to say at the time, right? Because he have other things that he say about Africa and religion, let's say, God. Yeah, going back to culture, I think there's a lot of tribes or societies in Africa, and each tribe or maybe might have its own religion. You know, all of them. In fact, they might be Muslim, they might be Christian or whatever, but all of them have their own religion. If you are able just to go back there, you will realize that all of them are the same. So maybe for us, the best thing to do is just go back home, and try to find what's there before colonialism. Yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Well appreciated thought, sister. And yeah, when I remember years ago when I first joined. Well, maybe not as I first joined. I guess about 5 or 6 years in. When the elder, this is one elder who he was a deep brother named Cleophas Jacobs, Jr. He had been born and raised in the movement. He was born 1930. His father was president of the division. He was, great elder. He was vice president back in the 50s. He was a martial artist, a very deep thinker. He was the editor of the Garvey's Voice newspaper, etc. But one time he told me about Mr. Garvey's when he was reading Booker T. Washington Up from Slavery, thinking about how to solve the problems of our race. He had the question in his mind of where's the black man's army, navy, king and kingdom, men of big affairs. Where's our institutions that will protect and save and provide for us? Why are we dependent on everybody else for life, for protection, for the things that we consume, etc. So he began to question these things. And when he went to sleep that night, his brain was afire. And I remember my elder, when he wrote about the story of Mr. Garvey spiritually traveling, he wrote it in a reddish color ink, which I looked at and said, well, why did he write this article on Garvey's time? And it was a profound article about Mr. Garvey's epiphany. But then I asked him later, just out of curiosity, why did you write it this way? He said, well, it's actually not red, it's maroon. I was like, oh, he said, yeah, because Garvey's maroon origin had a lot to do with his worldview. Maroons were those who escaped, from the vestiges of enslavement, and had a strong sense of their cultural identity and their being free, independent people who knew how to set up their own nation states. And so, becoming of maroon heritage and understanding that, we need to have our own communities, and these communities can work together to form an empire that will provide, for one another, and defend one another and act in tandem. This concept was almost naturally ingrained in him, since the earliest, since he was young. He was born 2 years after the Berlin Conference and became the answer to that big Berlin Decree or divide that was, what we needed at that time was Mr. Garvey's view and his sense of logic and reasoning to compel this upon us. So when I think about Mr. Garvey's spiritually traveling, as my elder used to say, back to an African past, kind of, I'm thinking like that old Christmas thing about the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future. That basically, in some sense, the ancestors showed Mr. Garvey in that dream that night what Africa was like in its days of glory, when we were highest in civilization, peaceful, loving, beautiful attire, everything, and then showed us the progression or degression when the other folks came and attacked and destroyed the temples and burned the libraries and kidnapped and robbed and all these things, and how we were in the position we were in, and how yet if we were to apply some of the old techniques of nation state formation, we can rebuild and liberate ourselves, extricate ourselves from this situation, and restore ourselves to the ancient glory again. And his job was to go out and teach the people what they need to do in order to form these, a league of communities, African communities. So basically, as I think about that night, that vision, that idea, that burning desire he had, when I say when the Mosiah was on fire with the desire for empire, this was the beginning of a whole new way of thinking for us, who are people who, have been scared to look white man directly in the eye, but scared of reckless eyeballing to get you killed. When you see a white man walking on the sidewalk, you better jump in the mud for, you might think you're trying to do something to cause them harm. People who was, didn't read, ancestors hadn't read for years, for generations, people who were in a real bad way, to have someone come with a philosophy telling us about our divinity, telling us that God was black, teaching us these concepts that were so foreign and, it was unbelievable. How did you get the people in one generation to do so much work almost overnight and produce the ships and the air fleet, along with the ships, you have these industries that have all these universities and hotels and grocery stores and 5,000 people in the U.S. being employed. Newspaper 4 languages at one point, but we're going all around the globe. You had all these kinds of great um, things being built, and even years after the founder died, his philosophy is the single biggest contributor to Africa's liberation, and many of the leading founding fathers of Africa acknowledge that, as well as the Harlem Renaissance sprang out of that, as well as the Black Power movement was directly attributable, Mr. Garvey's philosophy and program, and every constructive and positive thing that came after him, he had in many ways a strong definitive role in sparking it. So that all sparked that creative, brilliance and genius that he was able to generate. That's the only thing that's gonna ever get us to be once again a strong, independent, sovereign-minded people who can control their own destiny and not surrender it to other people. It's the only thing again that ever has worked, and the only thing that ever will work if we embrace it and don't think somehow that we, smarter than what our ancestors were able to do under that philosophy and program. But to actually restore that philosophy back to our race, a philosophy that Mr. Garvey actually extracted from the ancestors, that he, were being driven by, and from those books and things that he read to help form his understanding of the direction we needed. So anyway, I'm thankful to the Most High for his view, and I always thought, just for the record too, that the part of the book that talks about man never dies. And I want you all after the program to look at what scientists call the conservation of matter. I think you were mentioning that too, brother minister. But if you look at how the matter never dies, even Neil deGrasse Tyson and others talk about us. The circle of life, is Lion King would say. I thought his mentioning and bringing that out so brilliantly back, almost 100 years ago, says a lot about how advanced his thinking was, and how still universally timeless and accurate his thinking is today. It's just, boggles my mind sometimes. Not just analyzing what he did, but how do you develop the mind of Marcus Garvey to synthesize thoughts like he did? And it takes understanding of his, relationship to the Most High. I think, and his spiritual obedience to his mission to, redeem Africa, which he, again, I've said before, the definition of African redemption is the redemption of Africa is a great commission, not only to recover Africa for the Africans, but to rescue the souls of Africa's sons and daughters from social, political, economic, and spiritual bondage. To restore us to a ground of advantage to secure the true uplift of our race and the good of the human family. So, only one can save the planet is the only one who's ever saved the planet, and that's us. We surrender our responsibility. We know what we're going to get.
Yes, sir. I thought Brother Race first was coming in to talk,
Yeah,
but
I'm right behind you, right behind you. Yep.
okay, yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. But yeah, Sister Kandaka made an interesting point there, and Elder just said so much stuff just then that I could build on. Do you know what I mean? But I do think, like Sister Kandaka was saying, that in the time where Garvey was teaching, he couldn't directly say Christianity is some idiot thing, because the people, it wouldn't have been good for the organizing. But if you read these words, he's alluding to that this is the white man's version of it. Like this has been plagiarized. And the elder was mentioning that it was a time where we're just coming out of chattel slavery, where we wasn't able to read. So, and the same thing happens to me, President General. When I read Garvey, sometimes I'm amazed by how he knew these things. Like, we're here 2024, got access to the internet, many libraries, all of these kind of things, and we don't even know. But he knew those things back then. So I know that it wasn't a book that he read those things in. Those things was inscribed in his spirit. Those things was inside of him. And he was able to bring it out of him. Because there's no way that he knew what he knew. Because you got people that was going to top universities, couldn't test Mr. Garvey. We talk about Du Bois. He was one of the the biggest thinkers of our people in America at the time, and he was scared to debate Garvey. Garvey even offered him, listen, come to the Liberty Hall. If you think my program is wrong, challenge me on this program. Nobody would challenge him on it. It took our enemies to create the FBI to shut down this man. And obviously we had the traitors amongst us that played their part also. But the man was just unique. And I said that I put recently, when did I do it? Yesterday or the day before? I put a PowerPoint up on the YouTube that I had on my computer. I thought I was just cleaning my Empress's computer, and I found it on there. So I said, you know what, let me just upload this PowerPoint onto the YouTube. But when I was listening back to it, I said something in there that was very, even then, even listening to it now, it struck out at me. Marcus Garvey was unique. There was none like him. None like him. In the sense of what he thought and what he was trying to do and what he did do in the space of 10 years, brothers and sisters. Let's be honest, from 1914 to 1924 is, you can't even, let's just say from we went to America, which would, they say 1915, 1916 to 1926. Look what the man accomplished in just 10 years, brothers and sisters. Elder was mentioning the Black Star Line. He was mentioning the Black Eagles. We talk about businesses. We talk about him buying land or trying to acquire land in Africa, in Liberia. If he was left alone, we will be in a better position today, brothers and sisters. 100%. we'll be in a greater position today. But the greatest thing that he could have left us is universal black nationalism or universal African nationalism. That means that we can take that in wherever we are and build upon it, or internalize that any way that we can, to be race first, as brother race first is saying that, be race first in everything we're doing. As Sister Kandaka was saying, we'll be able to go back, to go forward. We'll be able to reconnect with what our ancestors was doing, as well as be current in society that we're living in now, and try to obtain something to stand. And I think that is the greatest thing. Like, I was reading something today where Garvey said that the UN, is nil and void. And it's funny, I laugh at that, but it really is. And if you look at it to this day, the UN is still nil and void. It doesn't do nothing. The African Union, the same, is nil and void. It's not doing nothing for our people. It hasn't done nothing for our people. I don't think it's been set up to do anything for our people. But here is a doctrine that has been made to liberate our people, and we don't want it. Is the saddest thing. Many of us, anyway. You know what I mean? So in wrapping up, we got 15 more minutes. I just wanted to kind of summarize, a few things. But universal African nationalism, brothers and sisters. I know everybody on the chat is members of the UNIA. We have our President General. We're lucky to have him on the chat, but we have our President General on the chat. But this is what we signed up for. This is what we've pledged to. So it's on us to continue to do this work. Even from how we view God, we must view God through our own spectacles. Even if we're not religious in that sense, we must still be spiritual, because the UNIA is still a spiritual movement. And spiritual, if you look at spiritual movements, they can't be boxed into one thing. We could say we're dealing with nature. We could say we're eating good, healthy, and we could say we're building nations. We could say we're holistic. We could add anything into that title, brothers and sisters. So I just wanted to add that. And like I said, it's the last 15 minutes, so I don't want to talk away you guys' ears. Is there anything else anybody else want to add before we start wrapping up?
No, I personally think like all bases have been touched, and it's just left to do the work. Do the work. It's been a very enlightening discussion. I want to thank everybody for sharing, and I hope we all learned something. Those listening, those on the panel, and I hope to see everyone here again next week, because this is a weekly thing. We'll be doing this every week, and tell a friend to tell a friend to tell another friend, and make sure they're a black friend.
Yes, sir.
Mm.
Yes, sir. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I would encourage every week for us to invite one person at least to the conversation. They don't have to come on the panel, but invite them to the discussion to listen and tune in, because they will hear the words of Marcus Garvey, the message to the people, the course of African philosophy. They would also be able to hear brothers and sisters like-minded thinking together, trying to build something together. And we've got to be growing, brothers and sisters. We've got to be building. Although I do say one and one cocoa fill basket, so we don't need everybody. We just need the right people. But we want this to grow, and it has been growing, brothers and sisters. So I want to thank everybody. I want to give my thanks, as Brother Ray's first was just doing. I want to thank everybody that has been watching over the past 5 weeks, that has been contributing. I see Elder President General say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say couple words in closing. That this is a movement for improvement, which in and of itself is a spiritual kind of ecclesiastical movement that spiritual kind of makes you think of spiral or something that's kind of elevating. But anyway, when you think about like I say, I mentioned before that I used to be in the Jehovah's Witnesses when I was younger, about 40 years ago, and I remember they had this thing they called blood guilt. when they they mentioned, it was a scripture that talked about, if a valley of people were about to be flooded, and you were on the top of the hill and you saw, like a dam coming, about to break, and whatever, something was going to flood the valley. If you didn't warn the people about, this danger, this imminent danger that was coming to them, and you sat there and just let them all suffer and die without giving them a chance to, save their own lives, then, some kind of way God would take their lives from you, but take your life and give them life back because they didn't get a fair chance. So anyway, it was scriptures dealt with that, but they, implied that don't be blood guilty when you got the gospel and the good news, and you can save somebody's life with it. Go out and share it. If you don't share it, it's going to be on you if something happens to them. If they don't get at least the opportunity to get that saving, then it's on you. And I feel the same way about the UNIA today. What we have is a powerful message. What we have is a powerful gospel. It's life saving information everybody needs to have, and understand to live a quality life, to improve our conditions, and to make a better life for generations to come, and honor those who were the workers who came before us. We honor the workmen and women by continuing to work and never surrendering. So this is a very important spiritual mission we're on, and London is the fastest growing division of the UNIA probably anywhere in the world today. And I wanted to keep growing and building and growing and expanding until you got to have 20 divisions in London. Because this is busting at the seams. Everybody, Lottie Dottie, everybody. Like our brother Race first said, call a friend and tell a friend to jump on in, and call the butcher, baker, candlestick maker. Tell them, come on up to this meeting, come on and rap with us on this session. Check out this information. Tell me what you think. Let's have a dialogue. But reach out to people, share this information with them. Don't let them die. Give them the information they need to understand that there is a solution, and then our universal problems have a universal solution, and it's the rationalism of nationalism, universal African nationalism. So definitely go out there and reach somebody and bring them on together. And the more of us come together, the easier our solution becomes. The direction, the ability to do for ourselves becomes a lot easier. The more of us who come together. So let's shoot for 1,000 members by the end of the year. Let's shoot for 10,000 by next year. Let's try to have so many members. We got all the banks and the grocery stores, everything we need, we're providing. We need Africa towns, just like the Chinese love to have Chinatowns everywhere. And we're our institution. So we really have that same spiritual drive and want to be Garvey like, and we gotta have that same obedience to our divine injunction, and that's fulfilled as a race of people, and demonstrate to other communities around the globe what can be done. And hopefully it will spark a inferno that will spread into the hearts and minds of our people everywhere. So just keep doing what you're doing, and always happy to be on the phone with such strong, righteous, convicted brothers and sisters who ain't playing with this thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I think what you was making mention of, I believe they were called the watchmen or the watchers, and they were known to blow the trumpet according to the scriptures. When they see the signs of the times, they will blow the trumpet, and they were responsible for informing the believers of the signs of the times, and if they didn't inform the people, they will be judged. So I remember reading that in Revelations back in the days. You know what I mean? So yeah, indeed, we are like the watchmen or the watchers in this time, sounding the trumpet to universal African nationalism to save our people. You know what I'm saying? So come hear the good word every Sunday, 6 till 8. We got 5 minutes left on the dial. And we're gonna stick to the time. We're not gonna end before. We're gonna stick to the straight 2 hours. But brothers and sisters, it's very important to tell our friend. It's very important. Elder Barak, Shaka Barak, he mentioned, I think maybe last week or the week before, about reaching out to 10 people. I hope the brothers and sisters did that. I know I did. And we must continue. And maybe do it again this week. maybe this week. So you're gonna say something?
Yeah. I was just agreeing with you. Absolutely, we definitely need to do it. The UNIA is, we got to do as much as we can to reach as many as we can, and yet at the same time, let the people know that we it's not all free food and hugs, and we can't do anything for you till you make up your mind to do something for yourself. And once you have that attitude and the right disposition, then we can work with you and show you everything that needs to be done and join in with you, and you can join in with us and make this thing happen. But we really have to, be serious about this, and know that if we're doing what is right, the Almighty will bless our efforts. And I remember Mr. Garvey once said that we got to give up the silly idea of folding our hands and waiting on God to do everything for us.
Yes,
If
sir.
God intended for that, He wouldn't have given us a mind.
Yes,
So
sir.
whatever we want in life, we have to make up our minds to do for ourselves. And I say, it's time for us to stop talking about it and let's, be about it. Let us join together and not forsake that gathering, and make our vision a reality. And we can do it in this lifetime.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Let's not pass on the baton to the next generation without giving them something else other than just the baton. Yeah, let's give them something, some institutions. Let's give them something that will benefit them. I see you're gonna say something, Brother Race, first.
Yeah, amen. 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 Amen.
Okay, now I saw your mic was off. We got 4 minutes left, brothers and sisters. Anything else anybody want to add, Sister Kandaka, Sister Naisha?
For me, that's it. Just to thank everyone, and let's keep on going with everything.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, my sister. We are honored to have you back in the fold on our Sunday course. So thank
Right.
you. I hope everything is okay at home. Hope the husband is good also.
Uh-huh.
Good, 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 good. So we like to hear.
Uh-huh.
Yes, yes, my sister. We are a family organization, so we have to send our regards to the family also. You know how it is. You know how it is when you go home. How you have to talk to everybody, sister. You can't just go in the house and greet one person. I remember going to the Gambia years and years ago, and where I was staying, they used to have like the elders used to congregate, and I couldn't just go and say hello once to everybody. I had to say hello to every single elder. I said to them, listen, I'm gonna have to start going out the back door, because if I come out the front, I'm gonna spend all day talking to you guys. I got things to do. And we would laugh about that. But that is the African tradition. Do you know what I'm saying? Let's stick to let's not lose the good things that we have. Yeah. It's very
Spiritual
important.
way.
Say that again, sorry, sister.
So I was just saying it's a spiritual way, and that's the essence of our people and how we are.
Yeah, but we
Manners
let's
and
not
respect.
lose that. Yeah, like you
Mm,
said, there's a little bit left of it in our community somewhere. Let's try and hold on to that.
yeah. Does include, making sure the next generation have these principles installed in them. And we know that we live in a very, very different time to where we came in. But if we can at least give them something that they will remember to take away, then it will stay forever. Just one thing makes a difference. One on one
100%.
cocoa does what?
Fill the basket, sister. What? Yeah, caught me now. But yeah, most definitely, most definitely.
Yeah,
I remember I was even before last minute is going, but remember when I was even this afternoon when we was talking, I was saying that the way we grew is not the way we're growing our children, and it's not necessarily a good thing, because there's some things that we got when we was growing up that was beneficial for us, that taught us certain things, that we have to make sure that we're teaching our children these things. Because
yeah,
otherwise, yeah, our children are not going to have that same moral principle that we want them to have. Because we send
you
our
have to.
children to Rome, i.e., the school, and when they come back Romans, we want to complain. But we sent them
Yeah,
to Rome. What did we give them? What did we teach them? How do we
yeah,
expect them to just know about Garvey, know about race first, know about all of these kind of philosophies if we didn't teach them, because the school ain't gonna teach them that. The school is gonna, in fact, teach them the complete opposite. So we
But to
can't
be fair,
blame the
I mean,
youths. Sorry, go
like we
ahead,
were
sister.
saying
Sorry to
yesterday.
cut
Oh,
your wisdom.
sorry.
Sorry to
So,
cut your wisdom.
I was sorry to cut yours, my brother. But it's like we were saying yesterday, you know, a lot of us that came into this movement didn't come from a conscious community. We weren't born into it. You know, we had to find this on our own. And if we look at families today, they're not made the same way that they were 10, 20 years ago, where grandparents were involved and wanted to be involved and took the children every weekend, or, you know,
Mhm,
family was there in the essence. And those things are contributing to the downfall
100%.
of, you know, the principles that we have in our families today as well. So we have to find a way to be able to still incorporate the things that we knew and grew with and put that in them, because as you're right,
I
the
think
society is not going to
maybe
teach it.
maybe grandma's too young this nowadays.
Yeah, maybe,
You know,
maybe,
back in the
maybe
day,
you're
grandma has
right.
already lived her life, so she
Yeah,
could look
yeah,
after the children. Right now, granny's still going party. Do you get what I'm trying to
true.
say? Granny's still trying to shake, trying to groove, trying to stick and
Yeah,
move. Do you know what I mean? So maybe that's something, but you know, ultimately, family is important. That's why the elder was mentioned in the creed, and it, you know, we first to our God and then our family and then our nation. Family is very important. And
mm,
the longer we stay in Rome or Babylon or Europe, we're losing family because we're so isolated in our little pockets. We're just becoming isolated where it's just me over
yeah,
here and it's just you over there and brother over there and sister over there. There's no common unity or community, as they say. We don't congregate together in righteousness. We only congregate together in foolishness, i.e. dance and partying. So I
yeah.
think that's one
Um,
of the things that I've just got from this. We might have to do like a fun day or a family day, maybe next summer, where it's just a family day where people bring their kids and we could just play. Doesn't have to be anything that big, but it's just the gathering of our people, so that our kids know each other's kids and things like that. Because it's very important. If we can't bring them to the meetings when we have meetings, and we like how we're doing things online now, we don't get to see each other physical. So we're losing something in the digital realm. We're actually losing something, but we still try to keep the physical community still going also. I think it's very important that we don't lose that, but we still
it
must
is.
move with the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And obviously, we've got our meeting, you know, the first one altogether with new members in this week. And these are things that we'll be talking about on our agenda. So I look forward to that.
Oh, well, our members meeting next week Friday.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
this
yes,
Friday.
indeed. Yeah, next week Friday,
Yeah.
isn't it? So, yeah. The
Mm.
new week not start yet, you know.
Right. That's coming, upcoming. Yes.
Forward in. Yes, sister. Yeah, we've reached our 2 hour mark. I want to thank everybody for participating. Um, I want to, hope everybody has a great Garvey week. And I'll just give the floor to our President General to close us in righteousness.
Yes, thank you. Great Garvey Day. Thanks everybody for coming out, everybody for participating. And let us, by precept and example, teach our brothers and sisters the way. Garvey is the only solution to our destitution. Is a form of restitution. Trying to sound like a poet, like Brother Race First, and the Honorable Minister and Commissioner. But thank you all for participating. Always uplifting to me. And I'll just close with the motto of the association. Matter of fact, let me sing one quick hymn of the UNIA, the first stanza anyway, and then close with the motto. Uh, Oh, Africa, awake, and the morning is at hand. No more art thou forsaken, O bounteous motherland. From far thy sons and daughters are hastening back to thee. Their cries ring over the water that Africa shall be free. Old Africa, old Africa, old Africa, awake unto God, lift up thine eyes. One God,
one God,
one aim,
one aim,
One aim,
one destiny.
one destiny.
one destiny.
Good night.
Good night.